starting your journey on the road to preparing a grant. And so we're recording this. And I am Tracy Beidelman. I'm the Director of Grants here at SMC. And joining me in this presentation is Nani Zadori, our Project Manager here in the Grants Office. We welcome everyone here today and appreciate your time, and got some great information to share. This is the preliminary steps to developing your proposals to a full grant application that you would then submit. And so we want to talk about this process so that you are well prepared when you find an opportunity that you're interested in and know what that process looks like. So we have some slides to share with you. At the end, we'll have some Q&A. We are always available to meet with you one-on-one, either by Zoom. Feel free to come by our offices. We'll have all that good information at the end. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. Again, thank you for being here. All right. Nani, did you want to say anything before we get started?
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're happy to be here and co-lead this presentation with Tracy Beidelman, and happy that you're all here, and we'll be putting some information in the chat as well. Thank you.
And Nani will be doing the lion's share of the driving on the slideshow. So, all right, we'll get started. So the first thing we want to do is start with a participant poll. We'll go ahead and move the slide, Nani. All right. And so we're going to put the poll up on the screen. We just want to know who's in the room with us. I see names on the in the participant list. And so if we can put the poll up. What is your role at SMC? And have you ever used the GAP process before for a grant? Let people respond real quick. Okay. And looks like most everyone has responded. So we'll go ahead and look at this. And it looks like we've got a nice mix of folks that are here in the room between faculty, classified professional, administrator, managers, and most everybody has indicated that they have not participated in the GAP process before. So it's a great opportunity to learn about the process that we have here at SMC. And for those who have participated, this may be an opportunity to refresh the information and just get a little bit more familiarity with the process. So thank you for participating in that. And we'll go ahead and get started with our actual discussion. All right. So first, we want to talk about what is a grant. So a grant is a way that the federal, state, or local agency funds your ideas or projects. It's basically a document that you're going to put together, a proposal. You submit that proposal to the funding entity, and in turn, if they select your application, your proposal, they give what is called a contract, the funding vehicle. It's a legal contract between the funding agency and Santa Monica College Community College District. Okay, so it sets forth the terms and conditions of the award, all of the rules and requirements that that federal, state, or local entity is requiring of us for them giving us the funds to do the activity that we have proposed to do. Now, I do want to mention, again, it is a legal contract. That means that if an individual, a faculty member, a staff member, anyone who does not have the authorization to actually execute the agreement, if they submit the grant proposal and enter into a contractual agreement without the approval of the college, by law, they're going to be fiscally liable for any amount awarded. So the first thing that we want to say is, when you're interested in a grant, please come to the grants office, because we will be able to help you through the process of getting the approvals internally to submit your proposal, and then ensuring that we have the authority to execute the agreement by way of our president, Dr. Jeffrey. All right. And we'll go to the next slide. So who can apply for a grant? So generally, it's going to be a principal investigator. It's going to be a faculty member, a staff member. Sometimes it might even be a dean. But this is going to be the person who is going to be responsible for preparing, conducting, and administering the research that's defined by that grant proposal. This is the person who's going to be providing all of the training activities or coordinating all of the students to participate in the activity that you've proposed. This is the person who's going to direct the scientific or the technical nature of the project. Okay, and so that is the principal investigator. Now, what I do want to note to you, and it's highlighted here in red, that the projects that are led by faculty must have an administrative co-PI. This is a person who is either a project manager, a dean, or a director. This is the person who's going to help support your efforts as you're working on the technical side of the project. The administrative co-PI, that project manager or dean or director, is going to be helping you with the overall management of the project. This includes ensuring that all of the required reporting is completed and submitted on time. Any of the deliverables that are required as a part of that grant application and that grant proposal are submitted on time, and that those outcomes are met and documented. And this is going to be the person that's going to serve as the primary technical point of contact. So now we have a number of project managers across our campus who help to support various faculty members in the project. Some of them are online today as well. And so these are the persons who would help to support the PI, the principal investigator, as they are working on the project. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk about roles and responsibilities just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page. The superintendent president, that's Dr. Jeffrey, represents the college as the authorized organizational representative. So in any kind of a federal, state, or local grant, she is the person who is authorized to sign and enter into the legal agreement between that funding entity and the college district. She's going to be responsible for any kind of subcontracts. If we have, for example, if we're not the lead in the particular application, we perhaps are partnering with another organization or another institution that is what's considered a subcontract. She's still going to sign it because she's still the person responsible for putting the college into the legal contract. Now, as the director of grants here at the college, I serve in the role of supporting Dr. Jeffrey by clicking the button when we're submitting the application on her behalf. So I'm considered the authorized organizational representative because I am serving on her behalf. So when I am submitting the grant applications, I am submitting them under her name and authority to ensure that we still have that tie-in to the authorization to submit those grants. As the director of grants, and Nani does this as well, we work closely with the individuals in the development of the grant applications to ensure that all of the requirements of the proposals are being met. And we help with the pre-award and the post-award activities to ensure the full success of the project once it is awarded. And then in the third column, the project manager, principal investigator. These are the people that are leading the implementation of the grant activities. Once your grant is awarded, you're going to be able to serve in the role of ensuring that all of the activities are completed, coordinating all of the activities to ensure completion on time and within the budget that's been awarded to you. You'll be coordinating with the grants office as well as the fiscal services office through the life of the grant regarding any scope changes, period of performance extensions, reporting, and anything else as a part of that overall process. Okay. So that's the roles and responsibilities that each of us has in terms of moving forward with the proposal development award and the post-award side. Okay. So now let's get into some of the details about the actual grant approval process. And again, this is the process that we have. Nani, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. This is the process that we have prior to actually developing the grant proposal. We want to ensure that we've had a conversation internally at all levels in the grants office, with your department chair, with your vice president, and then what we call the grant advisory committee, which we'll talk about in just a moment, to ensure that everyone is on the same page about what your proposal is and how it is aligning with the vision, mission, and priorities of the college, how the resources will be used to help support the project and ensure its success. Okay, so we're going to start at the top. This is the grant development process. And right at the top, we see the highlight there, the laser pointing, is developing your idea. So you're in your office and you've got a great idea about a project that you want to help to support faculty development. Perhaps it's to help students in STEM related courses or health related courses or educational related courses. Whatever that looks like, you have an idea and you want to put it forward and find some funding in order to help support the growth and development that you're trying to support. So you're going to then identify some funding sources. Perhaps you have some ideas. Perhaps it's coming from the Department of Education. Perhaps the National Science Foundation has a grant that you believe would be a perfect alignment to help support the funding of this idea that you have. So you're going to identify those funding sources. The next thing we want to do is schedule the scoping meeting with the grants office. This is the time that you and I can come together, Nani, the grants office, and yourself to have a conversation about what your idea is, how it aligns with the vision, mission, and priorities of the college, the funding sources, does it actually align? Is the timing of the grant funding that's available from the funding source, does that align with the timeline that we might have to be able to get all of the review processes done internally and then have a thorough and thoughtful application prepared with all of the documentation and get it submitted on time? So that's that scoping meeting that we want to have. Once we've had that scoping meeting, then we're going to work on preparing the GAP, the grant approval process form. We'll be talking in depth about that in just a minute. This is the time that you're going to write a preliminary proposal on what you're proposing for your project. This is going to be submitted ultimately to the Grant Advisory Committee, and the committee is going to be making a decision about whether they believe that this project aligns with the vision, mission, and priorities of the college. Is it sustainable fiscally so that when the project is completed, the activities can be maintained or can be completed in a thoughtful manner? And are there resources available across the campus to ensure the success of your project? Okay. Once you've obtained the Grant Advisory Committee's authorization to proceed, this is the time that you would work with the Grants Office to develop the full application, meaning all of the additional details that are going to be required to meet the criteria of the funding proposal. They generally have a number of questions that you'll have to respond to, perhaps logic models or examples that you'll have to provide. And this will be all of the additional detail that you will be providing as a part of that full grant application. You're going to get any kind of final approvals from your vice president, and then the grants office is going to submit your grant on your behalf and on behalf of the college. Okay. And then, of course, we're going to wait for the wonderful response that we've been funded, and then we move on from there. Okay, so this is the grant development process. We wanted to set this out for you, but now let's get into a little bit of the detail on the development of the GAP. So first of all, this is the flow chart for the Grant Advisory Committee. When you're filling out the grant approval process form, these are the different steps, 5 of them that you see here, that we are going through this office and in conjunction with you when you're preparing a proposal that you want to fully develop. These are the steps that we're going through to get all of the approvals internally prior to developing the full application that we will then submit to the funding agency. So as you see, we start with number 1, which is the GAP form, the grant approval process form. And we're going to highlight 3 of these. We're going to highlight number 1, number 3, and number 5. But right now we're going to talk about number 1. The GAP form is what we're going to fill out to provide a preliminary overview that you're going to be submitting to the Grant Advisory Committee that will help them to understand what your project is, who it will impact, how it will benefit the campus community, and what the intended outcomes are going to be. Once we have completed that gap, we go to step number 2, which is the preliminary approval, which is your department chair or your direct supervisor and your area vice president. They will review the information that you have shared, and they will give a preliminary approval for it to proceed through the remaining process of interdepartmental concurrence, fiscal approval, and ultimately the grant advisory committee approval. Okay, so let's talk about the gap form. And feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We'll be looking at those chat questions as you go along, and we'll answer those at the very end. And then you'll also be able to come off of mute and ask any questions at the very end as well. Okay. So this that you see here in front of you is the SMC grant seeking process. This is a snapshot from the grant office's website. And specifically, it shows you step number 3, which is completing the gap form. Everything that we're talking about today is actually on the grant office's website. And so all of the steps that we're talking about are defined on the grant office website. So we're here at completing the gap form. One of the things I want to share with you is that the gap form is through an electronic system that we use. So when you're completing it, you can get to the link right there where it says number 1. You can get to the link and you can fill out that gap form. But we also have a Word document template right at the bottom. You can select that and download that Word document template, complete it so that you get your information done before you actually enter it into the portal. Because once you've entered it into the portal, it will be submitted and there's no way to make any adjustments or edits. So we would suggest that you go and get the Word document template. We can always work through the narrative together, through the budget together. Once we feel like it is in a good place, then you'd be able to copy and paste that information into the actual portal that you're going to be submitting to your department chair, as well as to your area vice president and to the grants office. Okay. One thing I want to note on this chart is that that red arrow, those red words, gap forms should be submitted for all proposals as early as possible. We do ask that they be submitted at least 90 days in advance. Now, we understand that some grant proposals come out and there's only a 30-day window that we are aware of that information. We cannot guarantee that we're going to get through all of the steps. We saw step 1, step 2, step 3, steps 4, step 5. We cannot guarantee that we're going to get through all of the steps in order to get your grant approved internally before we can get to the process of actually developing your grant application as a whole in a 30-day window. Okay. What we do ask is that as soon as you are aware of a grant opportunity, that you alert the grant office and that we will work with you together to determine that we would be able to meet the timeline to be able to get through all of the processes that we have internally to get to a point of having the grant advisory committee approve the proceeding of developing your full proposal. So we want to make you aware of that. Okay. And we'll keep going. All right. So the grant approval process form, again, all of this is on our website and you'll be able to read all of this information. But right now we're going to actually go into the electronic form so that you can take a look at it. And we're going to walk through each of the steps. And Nani is bringing that up. Okay. And so now we're in the actual electronic form. It's going to give you all of the information again that we're talking about here today. And we're going to get down to actually completing the form. All right. So in the form, it's going to ask you a number of different questions. First of all, the request date. So you're going to put in whatever date it is that you're asking for this particular project to be considered. Your project title. Perhaps you've made a name of the project title that you have. Maybe it's something related to AI. Maybe it's something related to education. Maybe it's something related to nursing, and you've got a nice catchy name for your project, and that's great. So you're going to put that project title name right there in that line. The grant program title then is whatever the funding source has indicated is the grant program. So for example, the Department of Education has a number of different programs that they're funding. For example, we're most recently working with a project under the post-secondary student success program. And so that would be the grant program title that you would put in here. The funding agency is whomever is actually providing the funding, whether it's the Department of Education, National Science Foundation, the California Chancellor's Office. That is the agency name that you would put in there. And then the proposal website. We are interested in having that website information so that we can go back to the website, pull the different information that the funding agency may be posting. And periodically, they will post information throughout the course of the time that the solicitation period is open. So we always want to make sure that there are no updates, or if there are updates, that we'll be able to access that information, so that we're always going to have the most current information about what is going on with that solicitation. Okay. Number 3 is the funding agency type. So that might be, again, the federal, state, might even be a foundation grant, or might be other. Maybe other is a local organization. Okay. And then you're going to indicate who is the principal investigator. So you're going to put your name and your email address in here because you're the person who's going to be leading this grant, should it become funded. Now, number 5, co-principal investigator. You may have other people internally that are going to be participating with you on your grant that would serve as a co-PI. And you'll have the opportunity to identify those people in your proposal narrative as you're communicating this internally to the Grant Advisory Committee. But what we do want to note is co-PIs for faculty-led projects have to have an administrative co-PI, and therefore that would be your project manager, your college dean, or your director. So if you want to reach out to one of the project managers that are here on campus and ask them if they would serve in an administrative role to help support your project, you're welcome to do that. And that is then the person's name that you would identify. Nani has been here for almost a year now. She's gotten a great hang of things, and she's been assigned to several grants at this point. She is also available to help and serve in the role as an administrative co-PI should you not have another person. Now, sometimes grants allow enough funding for you to write in a project manager, and that's perfectly fine too. But in instances where you do not have the ability to fund the salary of a project manager, then that is the reason that we have the ability to identify other persons, especially Nani, who's here in our grants office, to be able to help and support in that role. Okay. Number 6 is going to be the proposal deadline. When is the proposal due? We want to know that date because that's the date that we're working towards. And we're going to be backwards planning from that date. So if your application is due on June the 30th and today is May the 16th, we are really tight on time because we're going to have a lot of steps that we have to follow before we can even get to the point of being able to develop the full proposal in order to submit it on time. And here in the grants office, we like to submit things at least 2 to 3 days in advance of the actual due date to ensure that there are no hiccups in the system. Okay. Number 7 is the total grant dollars requested. So this is how much you are asking for. So when you're looking at the solicitation, it's going to perhaps talk about the minimum amount that the grant might allow you to ask for, or the maximum amount. The grant amount that you're requesting is going to be based on the budget that you're going to create. So this might be a section that you're going to wait until you've actually created your budget to be able to determine how much you're requesting. Okay, but once you've made that decision, that's the number that you're going to put in here. The period of performance is the months or the years that this grant is going to run. Some grants are 12 months, 24 months, 4 years, 5 years. It just depends. So you're going to put that information in here so that we understand how long is the commitment that we as a college going to have towards implementing the grant activities and recognizing the resources that we will have to contribute towards the success of the project. Okay. Number 9 talks about, is a 501c3 required? Some grants require a nonprofit organization. That's basically what that means, 501c3. In that instance, the foundation, the SMC Foundation, would be the organization that will apply for the grant on your behalf. So there are 2 different entities, the Santa Monica College Foundation, which is the 501c3, and the Santa Monica Community College District. So depending on the requirements of that solicitation and that grant program will determine which organization is going to be making that application. Okay. Project type generally is asking, is this a new grant proposal? Is this a retry? Is this something that we tried before and didn't quite make it, but we're trying it again? Or perhaps this is a renewal. Perhaps we have this grant now and we're continuing it as a part of the new solicitation process. Okay. All right. Going. And so now number 11, we get into the details. Describing the proposed project. What is the problem that we're trying to address? Who will be served as a part of this project proposal? How many people will we be able to impact through the resources that are going to be obtained by this grant? And what are the objectives and the expected outcomes of this proposal? So this is where you're going to provide a lot of detail, not the full 12-page, 15, 25-page document, but you're going to provide enough detail that our grant advisory committee will be able to understand what it is that you're proposing and what the impacts will be to our college community and to whom in the college community will be served. Okay, there is no minimum amount of words or maximum amount of words or information that can be included in this box. So feel free to provide enough detail to help us understand what that is. Okay. Number 12 talks about institutional alignment. Again, I can't understate that it's all about how the project aligns with the mission and goals of the college and the ongoing priorities that are set forth by the Board of Trustees on an annual basis. So you have links there so that you would be able to take a look at that and then explain how the project is aligned. Okay. Number 13 talks about institutionalization and sustainability. So what happens when the grant funding is completed? You had 12 months, you had 2 years, you had 3 years for the project. Will the project be completed and then the program ends? Or is it expected that the program is going to continue and be absorbed by the district after the grant funding ends? This is something that's very important. We need to understand it. Our fiscal team needs to understand it. Our leadership needs to understand it so that everybody understands what the resources are, both financially as well as staffing wise, what is going to be required so that a determination can be made whether it is something that is feasible or not. Okay. All right, and so then we get to the personnel and the budget portion of the gap form. So under number 14, personnel, will there be grant funded staff? So a minute ago, I talked about perhaps you have to write in a project manager to help support your project. So this is where you would say yes, and then you would talk about whatever the personnel position is that you're going to need and the percentage of time that would be needed towards helping to support your project. Okay. Then in the budget area, you're going to describe the budget. Now, this form here is a flat form. Okay. What we do ask is that you attach a detailed Excel spreadsheet in the form. We'll show you where to attach that in just a moment. But this form here is going to give a brief description of what the budget components are going to be. So perhaps you're going to have a lab technician for your project. Perhaps you're going to have a counselor for your project. Perhaps you're going to have supplies or purchase equipment, whatever that looks like. You're going to detail that information here in the budget, and then you're going to tell us what the total grant budget is and the annual budget. So if this is a multi-year grant, then your total grant budget, for example, supplies might be $50,000, and each year you plan on spending on a 2-year, you're going to spend $25,000, right? That's your annual budget to get you to the total. Okay. But again, you're going to have the detailed budget that's going to provide all of the details, the calculations, because you're going to need to be calculating for fringe benefits. You're going to need to calculate any kind of stipends, anything like that, that is going to be a part of the budget that is ultimately going to be a part of the review process that the department concurrence is going to be looking at, as well as the grant advisory committee. Okay. Number 17 on the GAP form, are there matching funds required? Some grants require a match. A match means that the entity, the college, is saying that they're going to be putting up some portion of their resources against the grant funding that the funding source is going to provide. It might be 25%, it might be 50%, it might be dollar for dollar. We would need to understand what the matching requirements are, and then we would need to be coordinating with our budget office to determine how we are going to come up with the match. Sometimes match is going to be cash. Sometimes match can be the time and effort of the personnel that is going to be working on the project. And so we then have to calculate what that time looks like. Maybe the match is going to be facilities usage or utility usage. So percentage of a facility might be used particularly for this particular project. We need to figure out the way to calculate that. And that's where we would want you to work with the budget office to ensure that that calculation is proper and accurate so that we would be able to communicate that to the funding source. Okay. All right. Facilities. You're going to list any kind of facilities or equipment that the college might need to provide for this project. So for example, if you're needing a laboratory for some kind of a lab project that you're proposing, and you need to have that particular lab carved out for this project, then you're going to need to communicate that, because that's going to need to be coordinated with the proper departments in order to ensure that that those resources are going to be available. Okay. Equipment and software. Do you need certain licensing or maintenance fees that are going to help support your project? You're going to need to be able to coordinate that with the appropriate department to ensure that those resources are going to be available. Okay. All right. And so then we get to the required interdepartmental concurrence. This is an area that the grants office will handle. We will coordinate with all of the departments to ensure that they have the opportunity to review this GAP form that you have prepared that communicates the project that you are proposing and the budget that you are proposing and the requirements that you are going to have in order to make your project successful. And through all of these departments, they will review your information and they will be able to then communicate back if they have some questions or things like that. You've got the general counsel, you've got IT, you've got marketing, human resources, and we'll talk about this in just a little bit more detail in a minute. All right. Here's where you're going to be able to attach relevant documents. So this is your budget. This is your Excel spreadsheet. This is the detailed budget that you're going to need to attach to the GAP form. This might be some kind of letters or information to help the reviewers understand, the internal reviewers understand better what your project is about or anything like that. So any kind of relevant attachments that you want to have, you will want to place it here. Okay. And then you're going to include the name of your department chair or your immediate supervisor along with their email address, because they're going to get an email of this form that they're going to be signing off on, as well as your area vice president. Now, they're only getting, when you submit this button, they're only getting an actual form to sign. You have to actually go ahead, Nani, and go to the next one. You're going to be getting this full document that you'll be able to download. We ask that you download this information, and this document is what you're then going to send to your area VP, as well as your department chair or your supervisor, so that they will be able to review all of the information and make a decision on whether it should go forward in that preliminary approval stage. So that means going forward to the interdepartmental concurrence and through the all the way to the grant advisory committee. Okay. So we'll go ahead and And then you submit it, the grants office is going to receive this information, and then we'll be contacting you and having further conversation about the project, okay? So we'll switch back over. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we will be having Q&A here in just a few minutes. So we talked about budget development. We're just highlighting here that if you have any questions, please contact Veronica Diaz in the budget office. She is a wonderful resource, and she will be able to help you if you're looking for assistance on personnel costs, fringe benefits, how to calculate the indirect. And indirect is one of the areas that we're highlighting as an important update. As of spring of this year, all grant budgets must include an indirect cost rate. Indirect cost rate is basically an administrative cost, okay? So you have direct costs, which is all of the costs that are specifically related to getting your project implemented, whether that's your counselors, whether that's your faculty, whether that's the equipment, the supplies that you're using. Indirect cost rates are those things that are not specifically tied to the direct implementation of your activity. In the past, we have not included indirect as a part of our grant applications unless it was required by the funding entity. But as of spring, we are now asking that all grants, as allowed by the funder, include an indirect cost rate, and currently that is 15%. Okay, all right. Okay, so we went from step one, we went to step two. Your supervisor, your dean, your area vice president has approved it. Now we need to go to interdepartmental approval. All right, and so we'll step there. All right, and so the required interdepartmental concurrence is these departments here that you see, again, human resources, equity pathways and inclusion, facility maintenance, risk management, general counsel, institutional research. All these different departments are going to play a role as necessary in the development of your proposal over the course of the funding of your grant, okay? So they have a couple of considerations. One, does this project require engagement with my particular department to fulfill the goals of the proposed project? They're going to receive a copy of the gap form that you just completed with all of the information that you have shared with your VP and your department supervisor, and they're going to be taking a look at it to determine if there's any coordination that needs to happen. Number two is, does the department have the resources available to support the project, and can they incorporate those proposed grant activities into the current department priorities? So of course, these departments are functioning on a daily basis. They've got their priorities that they're working on. So now we've come with a grant proposal to do some wonderful activities. The question is, does that department have the ability to ensure that they can support your activities to ensure the successful outcome as we commit to the funding entity? Okay, and so risk management might need to know whether there's something that they need to do as it relates to, we just had a project that we were working on with the chemistry department related to a piece of equipment. So we need to understand whether there are any issues or concerns that the risk management office may have as it relates to this piece of equipment and how it may impact or affect persons who are going to be in the room with that equipment. We want to maintain the safety of persons as they are using this equipment. The marketing department may want to work with you as it relates to supporting you on any marketing efforts for your project to ensure that everyone is aware of your project and can be able to get information out timely to folks to be able to know what's going on. Institutional research, you may need some assistance with data collection. And so the Institutional Research Office wants to ensure that they have the ability to support you as you're working on the project to ensure that they have the teamwork, the staffing that's going to be necessary to gather that information. Okay, and so once the departmental concurrence is completed, then we move to fiscal approval. Now, as a part of the departmental concurrence, you saw that the fiscal team is looking at the grant, but now under fiscal approval, the Vice President of Business and Administration is reviewing it again because he wants to ensure that the fiscal impact, the sustainability, and the district obligations This is important so that we understand what the commitment is that the district is making when we are committing to these grant proposals. Okay. And then number 5 is when we get to the grant advisory committee to give the approval. So we've gone from step number 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're at step number 5, which is where the grant advisory committee has reviewed everyone's comments, questions, the departmental concurrence. They may have questions, and if they do, we'll be communicating those questions to you as the project lead, and then you'll provide us with the responses and we'll provide it back. There'll be some back and forth perhaps. And then once all of that is settled, it's going to fiscal approval. And then all of that information is going to the grant advisory committee. Okay. So the grant advisory committee is these people listed here on your chart. The grant advisory committee meets monthly. We meet on the second Friday of each month or as needed. And many times, depending on the timing of the proposal and when the proposal is due and when the person is coming forward with an idea, we will invite you to the grant advisory committee meeting so that you will be able to have a conversation with the committee and be able to share your vision for your project and share a little bit more about the outcomes that you're intending to have as a part of your project. And so that they will hear it and that they will be able to ask some clarifying questions and you'll be able to give some clarifying answers. And so then they will be able to, as they're receiving the gap form and all of the documentation that you're providing, they have better understanding about what the vision is and how it will be implemented here in the campus community. Okay. And so once the grant advisory committee has reviewed your proposal, they will make the final decision on whether they believe that this project is in full alignment with the mission, vision, priorities of the college, that it is fiscally sound, that the college can commit to the resources, the funding, all of the requirements of the grant. And then that is the green light from the grants office and the grants office to you as the proposing entity to be able to develop the application as a full proposal. And at that point in time, we would work together, the grants office and you as the proposer, to be able to develop the full proposal, gather final documentation, whether it's letters of support or letters of commitment, additional documentation related to the criteria of the grant, full development of the narrative, putting all of the documentation together, and then the grants office would submit that grant application on your behalf, again, by the deadline that has been identified in the solicitation. Okay. So that is the internal process that we want to make sure that you're understanding. And it is a long process perhaps, but we believe it is a very thorough process to make sure that all aspects of the college community and those persons, those departments that may have a responsibility to help you with the success of your project are aware of it and can be able to be a support mechanism to you. Okay. All right. And so now we're going to turn over, and I'm going to turn it over to Nani to talk about some other resources that we have in the grants office.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you for the introduction. And thank you for the very thorough and detailed explanation and description of our overall grant development process here at SMC, as well as the grant approval process and all the steps that are involved. So now that you have all of that in your tool belt, you may be wondering, where do I begin to look for opportunities? If this is something new to you, you've had an idea, and or if you're returning and you have another new great idea. So we have on our website, back to our grants office website, on the left-hand panel, there's different sections, and we have one specifically for grant solicitations that you could see highlighted in the red. I'm going to navigate us over to our website so you can see it live and how it functions. 1 second, please. Okay. So here on our website, again, grant solicitations. This is where we post current and future forecasted and upcoming opportunities. You want to be sure to scroll all the way to the bottom as we have developed over 10 plus pages of opportunities. You'll notice that these are in alphabetical order. They will have a narrative description about a particular opportunity, as well as the website link, as well as the funding notice. On the right-hand side, you can see where if it's an annual submission that happens annually each fiscal year, or if it's like a one-time application with the deadline. We do keep the running history of previous applications, and you can note if it's closed, it'll say closed previous, as well as anything that's forecasted to be posted. The grants office monitors these weekly, bi-weekly, and we update the website periodically as needed. Another great feature for anybody looking to find opportunities and solicitations is this top panel up here. You are able to click and either search by area. For example, if you're interested in humanities, you can click and it'll filter it through for you. If you're interested in STEM opportunities, it'll filter it automatically for you. You're also able to search by the type of funding. For example, Tracy mentioned federal funding, such as U.S. Department of Education, state level funding, such as the Chancellor's Office, and go through the opportunities listed by that way. As well as if you already have a specific funder in mind, you work specifically with STEM, so you might want to just focus on NSF, for example. And if you are completely new and want to know everything that's available, past, present, forecasted future, you can leave these sections as all and go ahead and just type in by keyword, for example, arts and or math, and it will automatically filter those opportunities out for you. And now some of you completed our registration form, so we want to thank you for that. We did look through the data on there and the responses. We've noticed there's some interest in sustainability, some environmental initiatives. There's also some areas and folks interested in STEM. That's an ongoing one here at the college, as well as some solicitation requests and interests in AI, for example, or technology. So here at the grants office, Tracy and myself, we do monitor those, and at times we may reach out to you directly and your area supervisor, your VP, with specific opportunities a little bit more in detail. So please be always sure to check out our website here as well as email, where you will get a specific opportunity sent out to you that looks like it aligns with the college mission and vision. Okay, and then let me bounce back to our presentation. Okay, and so now that you have gone through all the steps that Tracy mentioned, from developing your idea, finding where to find the funding, as we just saw on our website, the grant approval process form, how to develop that, work with our budget development, Veronica Diaz, as well as work with our fiscal services team, go through all those 5 approval steps in our grant approval process. Get it submitted. You are now on your way to start looking for your ideas, developing them, walking through all those steps we mentioned, and then getting some applications submitted under the grants office, under SMC, through the authorized organizational rep, and getting successful awards and projects and programs here for the college. Okay, turn it back over to Tracy.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Nani. I appreciate it. All right, and so we're getting ready to go to Q&A. But we have one participant poll we have left, so we'll put it up here. We hope you've learned something. Feel free to answer the poll, and that it might be something new. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. All right, thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're going to turn over to questions and answers now. And so I see a couple of Q&As in the portal that we'll start with, and then we'll invite folks to open up the line and just ask. So first one I see is from Susan Finley. What if more than one person at the college wants to apply for the same grant? Is there an opportunity to pair up? So there certainly is, and we've had that situation before. And so it really depends on if you're looking to do the same exact thing, of course. So then we would be able to say to you, well, Susan, we are aware that another faculty member is trying to apply for the same project, you may want to go ahead and talk to that person, see if that's a collaboration you can come together with, because of course that could make a stronger application, right? If we're saying that we're going to try to support students in some form or fashion, and we are going to, do maybe a pilot program or something like that in two different areas, and be able to, monitor the outcomes of that and the success metrics of that, that would actually be really great. And so, yes, absolutely.
Tracy, there's a question. Is there a place to learn how to write successful grant applications?
Yes, so there are a number of websites. We do have information on our grant office website with various organizations that offer that information. The grants office also has done trainings in the past. And we have those trainings on our website. So there is a number of resources on our website for outside organizations that have done training in how to write successful grants. And you can also look at the videos that we've done here in the office in the past to get that information. And feel free to also just contact us, and we'd be more than happy to walk you through that kind of information as well.
Okay. I see one more question. Who determines the indirect cost rate?
So that's set from a federal mandate. And so the federal guidance will tell us whatever that indirect cost rate is. So when we look in the guidance, it's generally posted, and each of the federal agencies will have that information posted.
Okay.
And if it's state, then state will do something, whatever that is.
Okay. We have one more question for both of us, Tracy and Nani. Since when has this grant approval process been in place?
Thank you. I have been here almost 4 years now, and it was slightly in place when I got here, but I have been working very hard over the last 3.5 years to solidify this process and to communicate this out. We have the videos on the website that talk about it, and I do periodic trainings to different uh, departments, the CE committee, the Academic Senate committee. So wherever I can communicate it to be able to give that process. But for about 3.5 years now, certainly as long as I've been here, we have had this process in place, and we continue to strengthen it to assure the communication for all entities across the campus community.
And we're probably take a few more questions. There's one more in the chat. I can go ahead and address that one. Question is, how often is the site updated? I see some grants from 2022. I'm going to refer back to that grant solicitation website that I just shared, the walkthrough, and great question. As I mentioned, it is updated about every other week. And as we get new opportunities posted, shared with us, as well as sometimes we will directly email you if something comes through a listserv or a specific email or from leadership at the college. So it does get updated throughout the month. And the ones that you'll see that are previous close, we do keep them on there so that you can see other opportunities, the entire catchment, because sometimes those get renewed. Sometimes we retry for them. And it's good to have a running history of those as the entity may decide to fund them in the near future. And then just maybe two more questions. If a grant states that community college foundations are not eligible to apply, does this mean we can't apply at all, or we can't apply through us at the foundation office? So Luis, I'm taking the question is the distinction between applying as Santa Monica Community College District as an institute of higher education, as a public community college, we're eligible for those. And if it requires that nonprofit 501c3 that Tracy mentioned, and it might need to be applied through the Santa Monica College Foundation arm. So we are able to do as needed per the funding guidance. And always reach out to us if there's any specific questions. And then we may just take one more so we can have some time to close out. From the STEM team, are the funds set aside by the indirect cost rate usable by the grantee, or does the institution use those to cover costs? Tracy?
Right, so the indirect costs are set aside for general administration, but certainly depending on the grant and the funding entity, if there was something that we needed to do with those indirect costs, we would, but generally speaking, it's for it's not for direct costs. Okay, it's not for the project. It's not the direct cost for the project. It is for the overall administration of the proposal and the grant.
Okay. And then if there's any other questions we haven't gotten to in this live webinar, we will monitor these and send out an email to folks who've dropped them in. Okay.
And so we want to just close out, and we're happy to stay on, but we want to be cognizant of time for everybody. But we're happy to stay on to answer any other questions anyone may have. But just to close out with the last couple of slides, we do have the resources that we shared with you today. The Grants Office website, the GAP form, the grant solicitations. Each of these are live links. You'll be able to click on these and be able to be directed directly to the different websites on our Grants Office website. And we will be sharing the slides with everyone after this is over. And we want to thank you for your time. We want to thank you for your questions. We want to thank you for being here. Feel free to give us a call at any time. Our numbers are here, direct numbers. And we're located at 1516 Pico. We're right across the street. We're between the construction site and the new building that's being built. Feel free to come by and visit us anytime. We would love to talk with you and to share with the opportunities that you might have. So.
Tracy,
Thank you all so much. And again, we'll be sticking around. So if anybody has any questions, feel free. Really appreciate everybody's time. Thanks for all the nice words.